Ooh, Appletini. Wow, you can really taste the apples. Can we get 2 Appletinis, please?
Hey everybody, welcome to a brand new episode of Appletini Plus. I am Brad.
And Gerald's here with you. What's up, Bradley?
What's going on, man? It's good to be back. I mean, this is only our second full episode, but you know, we do it when we can.
Here we are, and ironically, I've never been, we waited a few weeks since this series ended, and I've never wanted to record so badly at the very end of a show. Like, as soon as it ended, I was like, what are you doing? I think you were like in bed at the time. You're like, I'm not recording tonight.
You're like, are you done? Are you done? No, I'm only on like episode 5.
Oh my God. Yeah, this series, I mean, we'll talk about it, obviously, when we get to our ratings at the end, but I really enjoyed it. So I'm looking forward to discussing it with you.
For those who don't know, we are going to talk Severance, the new show on Apple TV Plus, directed by Ben Stiller.
Yeah.
And starring many people like Adam Scott, Christopher Walken, who else is
John
in this?
Turturro.
John Turturro.
Patricia Arquette.
Yeah. Like, it has quite the cast. So for those who haven't heard of or seen Severance, here's the quick synopsis of it. Mark leads a team of office workers whose memories have been surgically divided between their work and personal lives. When a mysterious colleague appears outside of work, it begins a journey to discover the truth about their jobs.
There you have it. So obviously science fiction in nature.
Yes.
And a little bit of kind of playing mind games with you and with a lot of the characters on the show. So as we normally do here, we won't give away any spoilers at the top here in our just overall kind of thoughts. So we're going to do our ratings at the end, but Bradley, what's your overall just initial thoughts on Severance, the first season?
Overall thoughts is I really, really liked it. I loved the style of it, like very 70s-ish looking, but yet futuristic. I kind of like when movies and stuff kind of do that, like future stuff, but in the past kind of feel, kind of like a Terry Gilliam kind of weirdness to it. Like I had like
everything
him popping
kind
up
of
a
comes
lot
back
as
around,
I was watching
right?
it.
Yeah. Which, I mean, you see that all the time too, in popular culture.
And I didn't know, and I didn't know that this was a continuing season. I thought this was just a one-off. So to know that there will be more, I'm excited to continue on.
Well, especially the way they ended it, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, my initial thoughts are very similar to yours. I love the aesthetic of the show. It was very ominous and creepy. Like, it almost reminded me of Kubrick in a way, which I know is films, but just that very unsettling kind of atmosphere, and the show did that really well. And it really, really was impactful in terms of like connecting to the characters, which is kind of strange because each character is really playing 2 different versions of themselves. Kind of.
Yes.
So it was weird that, like to take Mark, for example, that you would kind of connect to Mark, even though, you saw 2 completely different sides of him. I don't know. I was still pulling for him throughout the whole show, regardless if he was in the quote unquote real world or if he was at work. So I love how Stiller and everybody involved were able to just immediately make the character so front and center too. It was a very character driven piece, I felt like.
Yes, very much so.
So we will be discussing spoilers as we continue through, guys. So this is your spoiler alert. As we get into the meat of our discussion here, we have some bullet points to go through, but there will be spoilers for the rest of this episode. So if you have not watched Severance yet and you do not want to be spoiled, then please come back once you have a chance to check it out. It is, 9 episodes, Brad, right?
Yes, it was nine episodes.
So 9 episodes.
It's a pretty quick watch. I mean, they're all just a little under an hour. So, I mean, it didn't take too long to watch through.
So we have our kind of patented bullet points here. So Brad, I'll let you start on the character discussion because I kind of segued us into that. But yeah, patented after 2 episodes. No one else does this, guys. Who was your favorite character in the season?
My favorite character in the entire season is Dylan. I loved Dylan. Like, I loved his whole, how he started out with the, you win all these prizes and I've like won, 10 finger cuffs and he's, vying for that waffle party, and how he kind of just has his own theories of what as they call him, his Audi, their life. Like, basically he looks at it as his Audi as like this player out there with girls, and he parties, and I loved his character and the way they kind of brought him around in the end when you find out what he is outside, like his arc. And then he's very like torn inside of like what happened to, since we already dropped the spoilers, but you find out he has a kid, so he obviously has a family, and he wants to know more about that because, like I said in the show, you're severed. So your work life is your work life, your home life's your home life. Like those two pieces of you don't know what the other one is doing. Mm-hmm. But yeah, definitely Dylan. Dylan is my favorite of the entire season.
Yeah, I have another question coming up that I think Dylan's going to apply to. But for me, and I really like too, as we're talking about the characters, I like how each of them kind of represented like a different part of our psyche in professional life, like in the workforce, unless you're doing something that you just absolutely are 100% in love with. Everybody kind of has these different like things they think about. And to me, Britt Lower, who portrayed Helly in the show, I loved her character, but I loved her specifically when she was severed, when she was at work, because she took on that perspective of just like, we hate our jobs, right?
Yes,
and she just
absolutely
didn't want to be there. Like, she literally would be anywhere else other than there. And we've all felt that from time to time, whether it's for like an hour or a day or a month or whatever. We just don't want to be at work. We want to escape, and you kind of got the sense that Helly was trying to escape her kind of work reality the whole time. And I really connected to that from my work history personally. Like, I don't know that I would say I like hate my jobs, but there's always times throughout my career where I'm like, man, I just want to get out of here,
there's always those days. Like I don't particularly, not like that, I don't hate my job, but there are days where I'm like, man, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be working right now, kind of thing. And also, she was definitely that hardcore, she's got to get out.
Yeah, and I also loved how like fearless she was too, because this is obviously just an unknown. Because when you show up there at Lumen, you're basically like born. Like, you're just, you don't have any memories. You don't have any knowledge of how you got there, where you came from. And so she didn't know anything other than what was there at Lumen. And she was so fearless. And so we'll talk about it, but some different things that she does throughout the course of the show to try to get out of there. And then eventually it comes to where, okay, I'm not going to get out of here, but I'm going to do what I can to make this situation kind of like come to light and kind of expose what's going on here. So she was, you know what I mean? Like, in other words, to have no prior knowledge of the company or of yourself, and to still take the chances that she took in the show. That's why she's probably my favorite character.
Well, and then when you find out her other side, her Audi side of how she is, you're just like, oh, she's the company loving.
She's part of the problem. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And
she doesn't know that.
And that juxtaposition was really key to my connecting to her on her work persona as well, because that's night and day right there. You can talk about the other characters, and they're all different in some way, but Helly was like the opposite side of the coin from what she was in real life and what she was at Lumen. Her severed, her innie, if you will.
Yeah. Are there any of the characters that you like, I didn't really like this one as much?
It was meant to be that way, but, Coble, Miss Selvig / Coble. I didn't really even like Miss Selvig, even though she was kind of acting and pretending.
Yeah.
She was kind of like that annoying neighbor to me that I didn't really like either. Mark was really nice to her, and, he was very accommodating to her, kind of coming over to his place and like helping him with his rollout for the garbage. But like, I don't know, I'm just that weird guy that's just like, please stay away from me to my neighbors. And in my head, like, I don't really want to have a relationship with my neighbors. And then obviously she was just like a horrible kind of figure that kind of represented Lumen, I guess, for us as the viewer. So I kind of channeled all my distaste for this quote unquote company through her as the boss. So I didn't like Patricia Arquette's character, and she was the villain on the show, I would say. That's fair to say. Yeah,
because you don't ever see the board. You only see the board, as a speaker with the one lady with the earpiece.
And you only hear them say one word on the whole season.
Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, she's set up to dislike her for sure. Which, I mean, if
that
you
would be the one
dislike
for
her,
me.
it worked out. They did their job.
I mean, it's pretty obvious, but that's the one for me that I was like, oh God.
I mean, even the character like Milchek, you kind of go back and forth, like, oh, I kind of like him.
I did too.
Like, oh, no, I don't want to like him, but I like him.
Yeah, he was definitely a complex character because I don't know. I kind of like what you said. Like I did find myself kind of liking him at times because I felt like he was almost kind of like what I was mentioning with Helly, where he was almost kind of a victim to the job that he had, the surroundings that he was in, and he was trying to make the best of it for those folks. You know what I mean? Like with the different parties and the music and like, I don't know. I just got a sense whenever something like that kind of gave them joy, he also got joy out of it. So I got the sense that he was at least a good person. You know what I mean? But he was just kind of doing his job. So I could relate to that as well.
He was there. He was told, this is what I got to do. This is my job. So I'm going to do it to a T. I don't think, do we ever really get to see him outside of like actually working?
I don't think so.
I don't think we do.
I don't think, other than that one time that he went to Dylan's, but he was still kind of in character at that point.
Yeah, he was still on the job, so to speak.
Right. Yeah. So I don't think we ever did. What character on this show, would you want to hang out with the most? Like if you could spend a day with one of these characters, and that could be their innie or their outie, who would you choose?
I don't know. There's a few of them. Like I think you'll probably laugh at this, but I would hang out with Rickon just because it's absurd.
Interesting. Okay.
Because he's so absurd and so like over the top that I don't know. I think I would find entertainment being around him, and the fact that
I can see that
the innies get a hold of his book and it's like the life-changing
right.
It's life-changing for them. What he wrote is even funnier. Like,
right. I could see that, and he's so self-absorbed, but it's almost to like a comic relief,
Yes, exactly.
Where it's just like so ridiculous. Like, okay, dude, like he has everybody over his place and he's doing that reading, and it's like he's Jesus reading the Bible or something.
Yes.
It's so crazy.
When they're going to leave, because Rickon is married to Adam Scott's Mark's character's sister. Mm-hmm. So they're going to leave him an advance copy of his book, and he's torn with like, well, where should I leave it? Like, should I leave it on the side or on the doorstep? Like, and then when he never got the book, he freaks out like, oh my God, my book's out there.
Uh-huh. It's like, so funny. Like somebody cares, right?
Yeah.
right. Well, for me, it was pretty easy, man. And I think I'm maybe blinded a little bit because it's portrayed by Christopher Walken, who I admire so much, but it would be Bert. Bert on the show, played by Christopher Walken. I mean, I think as the character Bert, both inside and what we saw of him briefly outside too, just that kind of like veteran, like I've been through it person, like you could just hear so many stories from, and like, like sometimes you just, or at least me, I become fascinated with somebody that's just done one thing for so long, whatever it is, and just kind of hear them spin stories about it. And I feel like Bert would be a cool guy to kind of sit down with for a few hours and just hear his kind of life, and the different things that he takes so serious and that he's passionate about. And I love Christopher Walken too, so just to hear the way he delivers lines, what I would probably love. He could talk to me about anything, I love his voice and the way his mannerisms and that kind of thing. So for me, I would want to hang out with Bert.
And I feel like his character is the closest to his innie and his outie seem.
Yeah, I guess since we're talking about, characters, I'll ask because like I thought it was interesting that the characters when they were in Lumen, some of them at least had the same characteristics as when they were out. Like it didn't have to be, re-embedded in them. And I'm specifically talking about Bert here and really Irving too, because Bert and Irving are, presumably gay, and we kind of get that storyline kind of like innuendo throughout the series.
Yeah.
And then it kind of comes to light in the finale. And Irving also, as an extension, played by John Turturro, is so like mesmerized with art and the artwork throughout Lumen. And then we find out that he is an artist on the outside. So I thought it was interesting that these different characteristics of their personality were both in Lumen and out of Lumen. Did you notice that, or did that surprise you?
I didn't notice it. for like Bert, it didn't really surprise me because he just seemed like the all around, just like he's a good guy kind of thing. And to where, someone like Adam Scott, where he's very much, when he goes down, it seems like he changes to like, I'm all business until, later on where things kind of change for him. And like we've talked before how Helly is a 180 difference. Mm-hmm. And John Turturro, he's very much the loner type. Even down in the office, he's just kind of seems like he sticks to himself.
Right.
He likes the artwork, and outside it's him and his dog. And they paint pictures.
Right.
And like I did like how some were complete opposites, some were similar, and I think it says to kind of how mentally how some of us are, where even in a workspace you might be a completely different work person than what you are when you're outside of work. And some people are the same in the office and out.
Right. I found that interesting because kind of like the analogy I used earlier about just kind of like being born there at Lumen and not knowing anything and not knowing who you are or where you are, but you still carry that kind of characteristic was an interesting choice to me. Not everybody did, because we mentioned Helly specifically, but yeah, especially with Bert and Irving, I felt like. And I guess Mark was kind of the same dude too, really. I mean, he was kind of, I don't know, he seemed depressed when he was at Lumen, even though he would really have no reason to be, at least till further on in the series. But yeah, they just kind of had those same like overarching characteristics with the exception of maybe Helly. Okay, so moving along in the discussion, we'll talk a little bit about like the technical stuff, like the music, different shots, that kind of thing. Was there anything that really stood out to you in terms of like the use of any of the technical stuff in the show? I mean, you mentioned already kind of the set design was good for you.
Oh yeah, I loved that whole, when they're in the office, everything is either like greenish colored, white, and it's all simplified, very almost 70s looking, but still futuristic in a way, kind of. Even the computers, like they're these old computers, but they're
right.
I mean, they
just
don't even know what they're working
only,
on, really.
Right,
they're like, they got to put numbers in a little bucket.
Yeah.
Like I loved the look of it. And the score with just this little like subtle piano that would always play underneath. It was very like, I would always notice it, and it always played very subtly a lot of the times until where it was just, and you'd only really hear it the most of the time when they're in the office. You'd hear it sometimes out, but not as, I don't want to say not as subtly, I guess.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, for me, one of the standouts was the scene where they had like the dance party, and Milicic brings in everything, and
is it fruit? Is that what they? Was that the
was this the?
Fruit, and was it deviled eggs or was it a?
Oh yeah, they had like the deviled egg tray or whatever. Wow, yeah. What was that? Hold on.
They had a couple parties, and it was like.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember, but there was one. But anyway, there's this scene where like the lights are like kind of going in and flashing. Out, and
he puts on like the record.
Defiant Jazz was the episode, I think.
Yeah.
And that was
was really cool.
That was obviously the choice that Helly would have, Defiant being in the title. So she would go for Defiant Jazz as the music that was used in that scene. But that was probably the best use of music for me, even though I didn't really know the song, just because of the way it was shot, and all the innies were kind of letting loose, which is not something we really seen them do up to that point.
Yeah.
Even that weird kind of geeky dance that Mark was doing in the corner, where he was just kind of like doing the cliche white boy dance, And you got a sense that everybody was having a good time, even though it was maybe just for just a minute or two. Even though they had these underlying kind of like, things going on, they all kind of had fun for just a couple of minutes.
Yeah, we're just going to let loose for a brief amount of time.
And it was really a detachment for the show, too. Like there had been nothing like multicolored or flashy like that in the show prior to that scene. So that would be, for me, my favorite use of music in the series. And that was from episode
I would
7.
agree with you on that.
So,
the little party was a nice little change of pace kind of thing.
So there was 9 episodes, Bradley, and we like to give what our favorite episode was and then what episode we liked the least. So if you want to give those two, what was your worst episode and your best episode?
Man, that's tough because as a whole, they were all good and really progressed the story a along very much. And I would say definitely the finale was the most tense episode, because you're just like, is the word going to get out? And you're very clinched up, like the scene at the end where Dylan's holding the little switches so that the innies could stay out and try to, like, you know, get the gigas up, and you're just like, like I love the tense of that episode. But then, like, episode 1 was so good, the way it just, like, what the hell's going on? You know, Helly wakes up on this table and I don't know what the heck is happening right now. And it really pulls you in. So, and there isn't an episode I hated while I was watching. I will say that there isn't one episode out of this that I'm like, no,
me neither. I thought they were all great, and they all kind of played to the story a little bit. The one that I liked the least would probably be episode 3, which was called In Perpetuity. Just because I felt like that episode was all like exposition. You know, they were going to the Perpetuity wing, which kind of gives you like the backstory to Lumen and you know, kind of the history of it, and then we kind of hear about optics and design and how they were going to, you know, arrange this coup in the past, which is kind of what ends up happening with Mark and his team.
There was always this stories of this grand battle of everybody fighting, but now there's just a few left in this building, which I'm kind of like, I kind of wanted to see if this battle actually did happen.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. And that episode in Perpetuity is also the one where Helly gets taken to the break room and she has to recite that almost excruciatingly over and over again. My favorite episode is the finale, and I did hate the cliffhanger. Not because, I mean, it was good. It was a good cliffhanger, but I just hated that we have to wait now, because it's like, that was so, it was such a climactic, like thunderous climax, and we got to it, and then it was like, all right, now we have to wait a year or whatever it is. Hopefully it won't be, but episode 9.
The we are. I was going to say at episode 9, that's when it finished. That's when I texted you, and I was like, fuck this ending. Like, I was mad that it just like left me hanging, because at that point, like I said, I didn't know. I thought this was just a one-off little like mini series.
Oh God, that would have been brutal.
So I didn't know that there was going to be a continuation.
Yeah.
So when it ended like that, I'm like, damn it.
Yeah. If that had been the end and there were no other episodes, that would have been brutal. What was your level of surprise when you found out who Mark's wife was at the end there?
Towards that end, there was this suspicion of like, okay, we haven't seen much of her. It still surprised me, but it was one of those like, it surprised me but didn't when you found out. You're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
But then I'm like, where is she on the outside then?
Right.
That's what I want to know.
Because she supposedly died and they had her funeral and everything. That's interesting too. So Lumen probably has something to do with orchestrating that, I would imagine. But I don't know. We don't know why yet. Hopefully that'll come to light in season 2. What were you more like? What was a bigger plot twist for you mentally? Was it the fact that Miss Casey was his wife, or the fact that Helly was one of the higher ups?
I think it was Helly more than his wife, because I wasn't expecting her to be one of the, what's their last name? Egan?
Egan,
to be like one of the family, so to speak. And that this whole thing that she was doing was just kind of a, you know, for show, to say, hey, look, this is how great being severed is. I'm going to do it myself. And that surprised me, because I was not expecting her to be that much. I would have expected her to be more of like she's a company person, but not a higher up.
Yeah, when she gave that monologue to her innie about like, you're not a person, you're not real.
Yeah.
Like you don't make decisions. I guess I should have kind of thought then like, oh, she must be some kind of like super crazy like CEO or something, but it didn't register with me, you know?
And in that scene where Helly was like, oh yeah, then fuck you, I'm going to go up the elevator hanging so it switches when you're and there's nothing you can do about it.
That's wild, dude. Somebody at my work actually brought that to my attention. I don't know why it didn't even register with me, but, you know, because once the elevator goes up or whatever, that's when you go back to your, real world self. So, like, she woke up hanging from the elevator, you know, and that's why really Helly lived, because she struggled to, you know, not hang there.
Yeah.
That's just crazy. You know, if you could imagine waking up and hanging from an elevator, you know.
Now let me ask you, could you, not really necessarily could you, would you, if this whole technology was a thing, would you be able to do a job where you would be severed?
I don't know. I mean, that's another thing that I asked my coworker about when we watched the show, but I don't think so. I don't know. The unknown would kind of freak me out a little bit, you know? Like, I already kind of get freaked out at night when my phone's in do not disturb mode that I'm going to, like, miss something. You know what I mean? So yeah. I don't know that I would want that level of detachment from reality, which is kind of what it is. So, you know, I don't know. It would depend. I mean, you know, Mark's doing it because of a tragedy and his depression and didn't feel like he could work otherwise mentally, you know? So I don't know. I guess it would depend on the situation. But as I'm sitting here, I would say no. What about you?
I would probably say no as well, because I mean, I've met, you know, friends that, you know, good friends that I've had outside of the office meeting at the office, and you wouldn't have that if you were severed. You're just like, you would know them there, but outside you would still have just whoever you have, you know, kind of like having two lives. It just,
right.
I don't know, I wouldn't like that.
Right. That's why I kind of led with, you know, each character was kind of playing two versions of themselves, you know, and the one lady, like the senator's wife or whatever, that Mark's sister met at the
at the
maternity
place
thing or whatever. Yeah. And you kind of got that from her where, like, she didn't remember meeting anybody when she was severed, and they could have been really good friends, but
yeah.
She was talking to Devin, and she's just like, I don't know who you are. You know, you could see in her eyes she didn't know what she was talking about. Mm-hmm. So to your point, that would be tough, because I don't know. The unknown would freak me out, because I wouldn't know, like, what did I do at work yesterday? And then I wouldn't know when I'm at work, what am I doing at home tonight? You know what I mean? Like, it would just be a weird thing to get used to. So I don't think I would want to do it.
And the way that they stagger your entrance and exits so that you don't end up, you know, bumping into someone you work with.
Right.
Because they don't want you to cross paths, so to speak, which is kind of weird.
We're getting ready to wrap up and give our rating on Severance Season 1, but is there any kind of alternate ending that you could imagine for this season? Anything that you wish you had seen at the very end or that you would change?
Don't leave me hanging.
Yeah.
Does that count? Can I say that?
You know, I was going to say, like, I don't know, because I kind of felt bad for Dylan too, who was your favorite character, but
yeah,
because he gets held as kind of the keymaster and gets held back so that everybody else can kind of experience this, and then he gets tackled at the end, which is essentially when the episode ends, when they all, I guess, wake up or fall asleep or however you would phrase that. I don't know, to go back to there any, but I don't know. I kind of felt bad for him, so I wish there was a scenario where, like, everybody could have been, if it could have been written in there somehow to where all of them could have gone through this, so that he could have seen his family and we could have gotten a little more backstory about him. That's the only thing I would have probably incorporated into the finale somehow, if that could have been, if they could have had another accomplice help them or something like that, to where all of them could have gone back. But otherwise, and I do hate being left hanging with so many weeks in between, but this was a show that I felt like from the first episode until the 9th episode, it really did build upon each episode until it got to a point where it was like exploding.
Absolutely did.
You know?
And there were multiple characters that we didn't even talk about. Like, we didn't even mention Petey, who kind of gets this all going. He was, you know, a coworker that got out, that seeks Mark out, you know, on the outside to kind of get his brain thinking, like, oh, is there more to this? Or the security guy, Mr. Grainer.
Right.
He just seemed like a grumpy old man to me. You know,
and also
he was a business guy.
June too, who was Petey's daughter. Was in like a punk rock band.
Yes,
her character would have been really cool to explore a little bit, and maybe we will as the show goes on.
Yeah, maybe next season.
Yeah.
I mean, was it Natalie? Is she the one that's the board's basically voice?
Yeah.
You find her at the end hanging out with Helly.
Yeah, it was Natalie. Yeah, it was Natalie. Yeah, and she's there with Helly at the banquet or whatever. Yeah, no, that was a plot twist for sure. And the fact that Ben Stiller was kind of behind the whole thing is a little crazy to me too. But I thought he did a great job, and it sits at a 98% right now on Rotten Tomatoes, out of 89 reviews, and it has an 83 out of 100 on Metacritic, which is pretty good as well. Receiving universal acclaim. I think it's fair to say that you and I both enjoyed it, but what we have to do to wrap up the episode is give our rating out of 100. So, Brad, do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first? You went first last time.
I'll let you start it off. Yeah, I went first last time. I'll let you start this one off.
I was hitting you up throughout the show, like, bro, start watching this, like, please, because like I wanted to talk to you about it so much, and I really enjoyed it. I mean, we already talked about the aesthetic and the atmospheric, just kind of like creepiness of the show. Everything that we talked about. I mean, I loved it for so many reasons: the performances, the set design, and this kind of tension building suspense that goes on over 9 episodes until we get to the end. I would highly recommend this to anyone that loves science fiction, and that kind of like, I mean, because this really is a commentary on like work-life balance. I mean, that's really what this is.
Yeah.
Which we all need more of in our lives if we're working. So for me, I loved it. I'm going to give it a high mark. So I'm going to give it a 93 out of 100.
93. All right. And I mean, I'm with you. Like, I really enjoyed the show. The first episode, I'm like, because I'd heard of it. You were like, we need to do this show. I'm like, okay. And so I'll start this first episode. I watched it and was like, okay, I want to know where this is going. What is this whole thing about? But it builds up every episode. I had a lot of different things kind of in my mind of like I said, I love the old look, but it's sci-fi, and it's, I don't know, I love the look of it. I love the pacing of it and the feel of it, and I would highly recommend anyone to check this out, even though we spoiled it along the way, but I would probably set it a 95.
Wow, nice. I didn't expect you to rank it higher than me, but I'm glad. I mean,
but yeah, I really liked it.
It's a good show. It's
even though that that last moment pissed me off, but we'll have more coming. I want it now.
Yeah.
I don't want to wait.
I hear you on that, dude. I'm in the same boat. It was one of the better shows that I've watched in the last probably like 10 years, I would say, from beginning to end, because there was never really a dull moment. I mean, you were always kind of like waiting to see what happened to these characters, and the fact that all these actors involved, most of them at least, had to, put their acting on display because they really had to play 2 different people. And that's, I mean, they're already not playing themselves when they're in a movie or a TV show, generally speaking, unless you're Nicolas Cage this weekend. So, you know what I mean? You got to play this character, but then you also got to play this version of the same character. So I was really impressed by everybody involved too. So, from a movie making or TV making standpoint, it really impressed me that way too. So I'm really looking forward to more of Severance. But that is our wrap up of season 1. Bradley, I guess we can tell them what we're doing next because we kind of decided pre-show.
Oh yeah. We can let them know.
So we're going to cover the first 2 seasons of Mythic Quest, which is an Apple TV Plus original show that if you have not seen it and you have a comedy sensibilities or even video game affinity, or I don't know what else. I mean, it's so many different things, kind of. I mean, it's definitely a sitcom that follows a group of programmers that are, programming this Final Fantasy type game, basically. And it just follows this group of folks that, work there. And one of the creative directors is portrayed by Rob from Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and Charlie Day helped him write the series. So it has a lot of those kind of like inappropriate jokes throughout, which are really cool.
It will make you laugh, that's for sure.
Yeah. So you have time to watch it. And honestly, I breezed through 2 seasons. I watched the first 2 seasons in about a week and a half. So
and they're fairly short seasons, and I think the episodes are only like 30 minutes each.
Yep, 30 minutes or less a pop. Yep. I think there was one episode that went over like 32 minutes, and that was it. So it's a great show, and some cool cameos throughout the season too, or throughout the show too, which I thought were really cool. Anthony Hopkins has a cameo in there, which is cool. But yeah, we'll be doing Mythic Quest next, and then who knows what will be after that. But please let us know if you have any suggestions or ideas for shows that you love on Apple TV Plus or movies that we should check out, original movies. So far, we've only done Coda and now Severance, so the door is wide open, right, Brad?
It is. There's a lot on the service that we can dive into, for sure.
Yeah, man. And all right, well, that's it for Severance. Why don't you tell them where to find us, man?
All right, yeah, you can follow us online on Twitter and Instagram at Appletini Plus, and the plus is spelled out, or you can email us appletiniplus@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you and let us know something we can do. So you have
absolutely.
Before we go, I'm going to put the plug in here for everyone to make sure that they check out Livestream for the Cure, May 19th to the 21st. You and I, Gerald, are usually involved in that.
Are we doing a segment on it? We're not doing a segment on it.
We don't have a segment on it, but
all right, but you're doing one with the cinema guys.
You and I are usually involved Yeah, I have a Cinema Guys segment, and you and I are usually involved in some way, through the whole thing.
Yep.
So.
And depending on my work schedule, I'll be handling social media for it for at least a couple days, and I'll be around there the whole weekend as usual. So check out Livestream for The Cure and donate if you can. But that's a great plug, Brad. I appreciate you mentioning that.
Yeah.
All right, guys, that's it. Bradley, as always, thanks for joining me to talk about stuff, and I enjoyed Severance, and I enjoyed talking to you about it.
Yeah, and we didn't even tell them we have Appletinis and Apple TV Plus together. But
I know we got to focus on our drinking more. We are covering up our alcohol addictions, but yes. Yes, Appletinis and Apple
still
TV.
Early.
Yeah, that's true. It's an afternoon recording today, so we had to take it easy. All right, man. I'll see you next time. Thanks, Brad.
We'll see ya.
All right. Good night.